Hi guys, and welcome to this video. This video is not a tutorial as such, it's more of a follow along as I try something new and see what happens. What I have here is a fountain pen, and as you can see it is a lever fill type fountain pen, and what we're doing today is replacing the ink sac or the bladder, which has long since perished, and that is one of the new replacement latex bladders that I got for it. It's going to need trimming down to size, measuring and what have you, and it's going to need gluing into place, and for gluing it into place I have got some homemade shellac, and this was simply made, it's basically a thick goopy glue as the original would have been, because these were shellacked on, and this is made from flakes of shellac, which I happen to have because you use them in various watchmaking related activities anyway, and isopropyl alcohol, which is something I always have to hand because of the watchmaking and because of the modelling. And essentially this has been left, I sort of mixed this morning. There's way more than I need here, but still it's there and it'll come in handy for something else. And all I did is I put the flakes in and then covered it with isopropyl alcohol, just kept giving it a stir every now and again, and added a little bit more alcohol as necessary. There's still a few lumps of undissolved shellac in there, but it's gloopy enough to do the job that I need it to do, hopefully, at least. So the pen here is a Waterman fountain pen with a lovely 14 karat gold nib, I think. Yes, and this particular pen is very special to me because this is not just an ordinary fountain pen. This specific pen is my very first fountain pen, the very first fountain pen I ever owned, and it was gifted to me from my dad. And this used to be my dad's fountain pen. I still have the original box with the original instructions, and it's got a nice sort of world logo at the top there, and it's just a beautiful shaped pen. It's really elegant. I mean, even by today's standards, let me just focus that for you, even by today's standards, this is just a classic elegant styled pen. It's a lovely thing. And this used to be my dad's pen, and when I first got interested in fountain pens and I wanted one, it was at a time when I was at school, and I think I mentioned this in the video where I turned the wooden fountain pen, and we were just starting to use ink pens at school, and we got these horrendous trumpet shaped biro things, awful hideous things, and I really wanted a fountain pen. And I remember talking to my parents about this, and my dad said, "Oh, hang on a minute," and off he went upstairs to his hidden stash of treasures, and he came back with this box and gave it to me. He said, "There you go, you can have that." So of course I was absolutely delighted, only to be slightly sad shortly afterwards, because when we tried to fill it, of course nothing happened. We tried the lever and nothing happened, and Dad took it apart. Obviously neither me nor my dad at that point really knew anything about fountain pens worth talking about, and Dad took it apart then with, I think, the idea in mind of seeing if you could use ordinary refills in place of the bladder, the ink sac, and unfortunately you can't. It's just not designed that way. What I didn't know at the time, and obviously what my dad didn't know at the time, is that you can get replacements of these. You can actually have them replaced. We had no idea. This pen, however, did not sit unused. My dad bought me a bottle of ink. It was Parker Quink, which I believe is still made today, and I remember that because the name was quite unusual and stuck in my head as being so. Parker Quink. And he bought me a bottle of this Quink, and what I used to do was just using the pen like this. I used to dip it in and write with it, and I only used to use it at home. I dug the pen out, I measured it, and I ordered up some of these replacement ink sacs. And as I say, I made some shellac rather than ordering a bottle because I'm only doing the one pen. And rather than using French chalk for dusting the ink sac, because I don't have any, I do have a French chalk stick somewhere in some sewing equipment, but where I couldn't tell you. So what I'm going to use is a bit of corn flour, or cornstarch, I believe you call it if you're American, which hopefully should do the same job. I can't see it being a problem, and I shouldn't think it would react with the latex. But what I'm going to do first of all is get this cut to size. What I'm going to do first of all is measure the gap that's there, which is about 7 millimeters, and I'm going to give it about another millimeter to make it a comfortable fit, so it's not going to squash in too much. So we take that out and pull off the ink sac, and then I'm going to mark this, and using a sharp knife and a straight edge, which just happens to be conveniently right here, I'm just going to slice that. Oops, let's try and get that into shot for you so you can see what's going on. I'm going to try and slice that in a nice straight cut, straight across, like so. It says, has that gone through? Ah, there we go. I'm just using a pair of tweezers so I can sort of stretch it round, put one side in and stretch the other side round, because it's a little bit awkward. I'd already fitted the uncut one on, so it already got a little bit of give in, but obviously when it's fresh like this, it's a little bit awkward. I'm trying to keep this in shot for you, but forgive me if I go out of shot. There we go. I'm going to push this all the way up so that it butts right up to the edge, and then what I'm going to try and do, I don't know how successful this is going to be yet. This, as I said, this is new to me as well as to you guys watching this. This is, you know, as the Monty Python boys say, and now for something completely different. What I'm going to try and do is roll this back on itself so that it's still attached. I don't know if this is actually going to be doable. Not sure that it is, to be honest. There's probably some secret dark art that pen repairers know and use. But what I want to try and do is roll this back a little so that I can apply the shellac in a nice thick goopy coating around it, and then sort of roll it back over itself, if you follow, if you see what I mean. I don't know, as I say, yet how successful that idea is going to be, because it seems to be sliding down rather than unrolling. Yeah, I think what I'm going to do is actually pull this down so it's right down near the edge, so I don't have to try and feed it on again. Whoops. Without it coming off like it just has done, and apply the shellac and then kind of use the tweezers to ease it up over, and hopefully that should achieve the same result. And then once the shellac has been applied, I will be leaving it to set. I've got a cocktail stick here which I've been using to mix the shellac with, and I have got the shellac in question. Let's just show you that. You'll see what I mean about it being like a toffee sauce, like a Ben & Jerry's toffee sauce. It's quite incredible, and if it wasn't for the fact that it smells like isopropyl alcohol, you could honestly drizzle that on some ice cream and eat it. It's amazing. Right, okay, so here goes. I'm just going to use a cocktail stick to apply it, and hopefully it will perform the job adequately. Now, the beauty of using shellac, of course, and the reason that it's used in watch repair is that it is removable and reusable over and over again without causing any damage. Now, I guess there's no particular reason you couldn't use something like an epoxy resin maybe on this, but I'm not sure how that might react with the latex ink sac, and whether it might have an adverse effect on it or start to degrade it, perhaps. If somebody knows, feel free to make a comment on that. Let's try and focus on that a bit for you so you can see what's going on. And then what I'm going to try and do, rather than just slide this up, is try and lift it up and over a little bit, so that I want to try and get a good goopy coating of this stuff underneath the rubber if I can. Not sure how well that's going to work, I've got to say. This is very messy indeed. Let me throw a bit more goop on that. I say, please don't take this as a dedicated how-to. This is just me trying this for the first time. So hopefully there'll be something in here that's useful for folks. And if there are people who actually do this regularly or on any kind of professional level who want to throw in any pointers or tips or comments about what I might be doing wrong, or whether this is adequate or not, then please feel free to hurl them into the where's the camera, where are we, into the comments below, pointing the wrong way, below, that way. That way. So yes, throw them in the comments below. I do make a point of trying to reply to all comments wherever possible. I do like to interact with you guys who watch this, so please throw in a comment, say hi, and offer up any tips and advice if you've got some, because when it comes to anything new, I am always happy and willing to learn. And what I'm going to do now is, with a piece of paper underneath, because obviously I don't want to get this powder everywhere, and focusing on the pen in question, I'm just going to take a pinch of cornstarch, or corn flour as we know it in the UK, if I can get a pinch of it, and I'm just going to give that a bit of a dusting. I'm now going to leave that to set up overnight, and then when it's set, that will slot into, I'll just give that a quick slot into, it'll slot into there like so, and the inner J-bar, I think they call it, the bit that compresses it, is actually very good, in very good condition in here. I remember when, years and years ago, when my dad took this apart, thankfully it had been stored with no ink in it, and the ink sac literally just fell to pieces, it just crumbled to dust, but the innards of this are still very good. By the magic of video, we'll be back in a few seconds, but it will actually be tomorrow. Here we are the following day, and the ink I'm going to use is a sample pot I have of Noodler's Tianmen, which is a really nice, vibrant, dark red colour. And you can see down there is the pen, and the nib section with its new ink sac or bladder, and it's nice, fresh, stretchy, wobbly latex, as you can see there. So we're going to insert this into the pen, and I'm going to try and show you if I can. I'm not sure how well this will show up on the camera, but hopefully, let's focus on this for you. There we go, and inside that you can just see the J-clip, I believe that they're called, or part of it, and you can see how that works with the lever. If I lift that lever up, so if you lift it to the 90-degree point, like so, not all the way up like that, because that will actually release it slightly. So as you can see, 90-degree point, that fully compresses it. That will compress the latex ink sac as far as possible. We then insert the nib, the entire nib section, into the ink, flick that closed, and then the vacuum draws the ink up into the pen. So we're going to go ahead and do that, but I'm just going to move the camera out a little bit so we can get a full view of that. I'm going to take the pen and I'm going to insert it with the nib opposite the fill lever, like so. The sole reason I'm doing this on this particular pen is that I know from checking previously that the heavy point is where the fill lever is, and it will naturally roll to that side, as you can see, like so. So let's twist that a little bit. So it will naturally land with the nib that way up if I set it to rest. I don't know if that will make a particular difference in use, but nonetheless it is there. And the next thing to do is lift the lever to the 90-degree position. As you can see, you can feel the resistance there. Get some kitchen towel in preparation for the cleanup, and I'm going to take the ink and submerge the entire nib section into these fabulous little sample pots, and as you can see, that will submerge the whole thing, and flick that up and up sucks the ink. So I'm just going to scrape off the excess as much as I can, pop that down on the kitchen towel for the moment, and just cap that so it's not going to spill everywhere, and then I will just focus back down onto the paper. We'll give the end section in the nib a bit of a wipe. We'll now do a bit of test writing and see how this is. Now you'll have to excuse my writing because it is not the neatest in the world, not by any means. So a little bit scratchy, but as I say, it's I haven't used this pen properly since using it as a dip pen for, oh crikey, I think I would have been about 14 when my dad gave this to me. So I have never used this pen properly filled with ink at all, other than, as I say, as a dip pen. I'm just going to pop this out of curiosity and just check that all is well around the top sealing surface, and it seems to be. Just let that dangle down, and giving that a squeeze, you can see it came out of the nib, but we've not got anything leaking around the shellacked seal, so that's good. Let's try and vacuum some of that up. I'm just going to refill this again. And quickly back to the writing. Excuse the splats of ink that you see. Just went off screen a little bit there, but very nice. It's there's a bit more flex in this nib than I'm used to. The pens that I have currently, the project one for example, the one that I turned the pen body for on the lathe, has a much stiffer nib, iridium I believe, and this, as I say, is a 14 karat gold nib, so it feels a little unusual at first, but with practice I may be able to achieve some line variation, albeit subtle. It's a very fine nib, so I don't expect too much. So this is a Waterman's made in England and L2. I don't know if that's a model number or if that's something to do with the nib size or quite what, I'm not sure. That's all it says on the pen body. The ink that we are using is Noodler's Tiananmen. There's the video on the fitting of the ink sac or bladder to a fountain pen, and there's the ink stain of approval, and that makes fountain pen users universally recognised worldwide. And as I said at the start of the video, this is not a tutorial per se, this is a follow me along as I do this, but it does seem to have worked reasonably well. I will of course be using this and keeping a check on how well this performs over the course of time. Thank you for watching. Excuse my incredibly messy handwriting, and hopefully we'll catch you in the next video.